Hi, my name is Gary Runn, and I serve on the executive team for City, which is a division of Cru. And I reside in Austin, Texas. And if you're like me, currently, you're homebound. These are unprecedented times in light of COVID-19, and we're all trying to figure out ways that we can work in these constrained environments, but also continue to connect with others who are around us. This is a unique time, I believe, to really engage what I would call a whole life witness with those that God has placed around us. What do I mean? Well, a whole life witness moves beyond simply proclamation of the gospel to demonstration of the gospel. We have an opportunity in this season to actually show the love of Jesus to those that are around us who are experiencing the same thing that we're experiencing. This truly is a season of engagement that revolves around moments and conversations. And during this particular video, I want to reveal a few things about some research that we commissioned recently that could be really helpful in engaging those around us. We're going to talk today about 7 personas, and we're going to talk about a scale of belief. The research we commissioned revealed a number of things that can really aid us and help us in engaging others, and I think are especially poignant points of learning, pieces of learning during this season of the coronavirus. These 7 personas actually represent 7 categories of people who share traits with very real people who are all around you. It's not to try and categorize people in unhealthy ways, but it's actually to provide understanding so that we know how people relate to religion, to Christianity in general, and to the person of Jesus in particular. So for this video, I want to focus on only 3 of the 7 personas, because I believe it's these 3 personas during this season of disruption that we might be able to engage most, maybe opportunities that we wouldn't normally have. These 3 personas revolve around the anti-dogmatic, the comfortable, and the anxious. They're the ones that actually are probably the farthest from the cross of Christ, but also, again, provide us a meaningful pathway for engagement. Let's talk first about the anti-dogmatic. What does that actually mean? Let's call this person Jen. Jen might be that person that's farthest from the cross of Christ, but would also have a very strong position related to religion or the Christian faith in general. When she says that she's anti-dogmatic, what she's telling us is that, hey, I think I understand what you Christians stand for. I think I know what you believe, and from my perception of that belief system, I stand opposed. I stand against your dogma. That's what it means to be anti-dogmatic. You may know some people like this around you. But also there'd be somebody like Alan. We'll label the comfortable person Alan. Also quite far from the cross of Christ, and Alan represents a number of people who might consider themselves actually open to spiritual conversation, but they're also very content with where they stand in relationship to faith and religion. Their lives may look from the outside quite stable. They don't consider themselves to have really any need for religion or faith. They're very content with their practical agnosticism. And you may know some people like Alan. And then there's one more persona that we want to think about, and that would be the anxious. And we'll name the anxious person Danielle. An anxious person is the one that may really be very poignant during this disruptive season during the coronavirus. The anxious person is the one who actually is caught between different systems of belief. Possibly different circumstances are entering their lives. They feel this tension between different systems of belief, wondering which one is the right one or which one can demonstrate a pathway forward through their anxiety, and they're stuck. And during seasons like this, anxiety might really ramp up. So again, these personas represent, again, categories of people that are all around us. Some of these people you actually know by name. You know them because they're in your neighborhood. You know them because you work with them. You know them because they're in your social circles. Some of them you may not know, but you actually encounter them on a regular basis. You have yet to make their acquaintance, but you actually know that they exist and are around you, and you see them on a regular basis. And you may even know if they are an anti-dogmatic person, someone who's comfortable, or someone who's anxious in relationship to religion or to faith. The point of understanding these personas is simply that. It's not to change their self-declared identity in relationship to a religion or even the person of Jesus. That'll happen over time as God works in their life. The point is to understand their point of view. to understand how they wrestle with these ideas of religion and faith. It's really to ask a lot of questions, to get to know them on their journey. Everybody is on a spiritual journey, whether they're cognizant of it or not. But in their self-declared identity, we have an opportunity to engage their story. We have an opportunity to really have conversations so that we can go deeper and better understand how they view these things. It's not even necessarily to counter those identity postures, but it's to truly understand them. So that's a critical aspect of the 7 personas. Another aspect that I mentioned is the scale of belief. This is actually where we want to put our prayerful focus, is along the scale of belief. Because the scale of belief, which the research revealed, there's 6 points along that scale, that's actually representative of their faith journey. Again, everybody's on a spiritual journey. That's because they were created in the image of God, so they have a built-in spiritual hunger, whether they recognize it or not. But that scale of belief, which often kind of matches their self-declared identity, their persona, does give us more of an indication of their faith journey. That's what we want to pray for. That's where we actually want to be active agents, engaging them both through conversation and demonstration of the love of Christ. And we're only going to focus on 3 of those 6 points along the scale. We're going to talk about the unaware, the content, and the curious. The person who's unaware, which might also relate back to Jen, is someone who's kind of benign to religion in general. They really have little knowledge or understanding of any major religion. It's very likely they've never really been in a relationship with somebody who's a true follower of Jesus, so they have very little knowledge, practical knowledge, experiential knowledge, and yet they may have still a formed belief about faith and religion and Christianity, but largely unaware. The content, which again might somewhat relate to Alan. The content represent people that are content without religion, without faith. Their lives, again, look fairly stable from the outside. But it's often these disruptive moments, which can come both culturally or personally, that state of contentment becomes unglued too. They're no longer content. And so there's an opportunity to show compassion for them at this point in their lives. And then finally, the curious. This could relate to Danielle and those that are anxious. It could relate to a whole range of people who have yet to really have a personal relationship with Jesus. But they're those people who are actually seeking purpose and meaning in their lives. And they're looking for that connection point that would give them purpose and meaning. It might even cause them to look towards spirituality for that point of connection. They're looking for clues. They're looking for answers. They're curious about where that angst for purpose and meaning and the desire to make a difference comes from. So again, one of the things that the research revealed is that people are not so much today asking, does Jesus exist? Did he exist as a historical figure? That's actually being taken for granted more and more these days. The primary question people are asking is more experiential. Does Jesus matter? Does he matter to my everyday life? This is where we have an opportunity to actually step in, to show the love of Christ, to deeply understand their self-declared identity, but also to understand and engage with them along their spiritual journey. One other point that came up from the research that should give you great confidence, and it's this. 84% of the respondents said they would be willing to do one of 2 things with a person of faith, a follower of Christ. One is to have a spiritual conversation. The other is to join you in doing good for others. Both those things can be represented right now in this time of upheaval. They can go with us as we seek to serve others, or we can join them. But also it opens up the opportunity to have conversations around faith if. And that if is, will we show a deep empathy, a deep understanding and respect for their own journey, where they are right now. That our point in this season is not to manipulate them. It's not necessarily to proclaim the gospel message to them, but it's really to have a deeper understanding and join them on their own journey, showing the love of Christ. So what does that look like practically? Let me just offer a few suggestions as we wind up this video segment. What might this look like? It begins with awareness. Can you begin to think about those people around you? Who are the anti-dogmatics? Who are those that maybe on the scale of belief are anxious? They're looking. It begins with awareness. Can you name them? Think of them. And then secondly, will we begin to pray for them? Will we pray that God would give us encounters? Will we pray for them along their spiritual journey, that God might engage and move them and may choose to use us? Third, we can engage them with questions. Real questions, searching for needs that can maybe be practically met. In this time of social distancing, we'll have to probably use text, maybe social media, maybe even email, possibly a conversation over the fence for a brief moment. But there are still ways that we can reach out digitally to begin to see what are some practical needs that we can meet in these people's lives, or do they want to join us, or we join them in meeting other people's practical needs that exist around us. These opportunities and encounters are opportunities to serve. They create space for gospel proclamation later. But this season is primarily about showing the gospel in a highly disruptive season. We offer hope when we do that. We demonstrate that Jesus matters when we do this. We may be the person that helps them take their next step along their faith journey towards God. And they can be very simple, practical questions. How are you doing? What do you need? How can I help? Even to comment, isn't it good simply to connect? Consider these ways, pray, ask the Lord, and He will lead you on how you can engage these people who are all around you. Thanks.